His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda ki, Gaura Okay, we're continuing Canto 10, Chapter 11. Krishna has arrived in Vrindavan. He's 3 years and 4 months old. And the elders, headed by Upananda, held a village elders meeting and decided best to leave Gokula. And three main reasons: too many dangers, not good for the cows here, better for the cows in Vrindavan, and there it's safe. Under the king, no wild animals, everything's ready to go. So they went, and they arrived, and we spent some time discussing. It's a very large tract of land that they kind of set up camp. 16 miles by 8 miles perimeter in a forest. They, on one side of the river Jamuna and the other three sides, they set up their carts, and then eventually they set up fences made of thorn bushes, etc. And Krishna and Balaram were very happy being in Vrindavan, and the trees and the rivers and the everything, the mountains, the animals, the peacocks. They were very happy that Krishna came, and he is enjoying his time in Vrindavan. So, beginning with text 37, in this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys and talking in half-broken language, gave transcendental pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. Purport. Now this is Srila Prabhupada's purport, because it's chapter 11. As soon as Krishna and Balaram were a little grown up, they were meant for taking care of the calves. Although born in a very well-to-do family, they still had to take care of the calves. This was the system of education. Those who were not born in Brahmana families were not meant for academic education. The Brahmanas were trained in a literary academic education. The Kshatriyas were trained to take care of the state, and the Vaishyas learned how to cultivate the land and take care of the cows and calves. There was no need to waste time to go to school, to be falsely educated, and later increase the number of unemployed. Krishna and Balaram taught us by their personal behavior. Krishna took care of the cows and played his flute, and Balaram took care of agricultural activities with the plow in his hand. This comment on what Prabhupada wrote here. Those who are twice born in Dvija include the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, and did some research, and according to Manu Samhita, there's a certain age at which the Vaishyas, and then the Kshatriyas, and then the Brahmanas, or in reverse order, younger is the Brahmanas, then Kshatriyas, then Vaishyas. They receive initiation into Gayatri Mantra. There was a question, why did Krishna wait? Why did Krishna wait to receive Gayatri when he came to Mathura, and then go to school at the school of Sandipani Muni when he went to Mathura? So there's like a 5-page set of research on that topic. Prabhupada is saying here that the those who are not born in Brahmana families were not meant for academic education. It doesn't mean that they
we hear from their discussions. They knew scriptures. They knew all kinds of things. Like, here's a for example. When in chapter what is it? The chapter where it just comes after the Govardhan Lila. So something like 26, 27, something like that. There was a Kadasi day, and then it was a Dwadasi morning. And Nanda Maharaj was taking his bath before, in the Jamuna, before breaking a Kadasi on the Dwadasi morning. But it was one of those mornings that he knew the rule. The rule is, besides the solar day, there's the lunar day. And sometimes the lunar day matches the solar day, and sometimes it's much shorter. This is one of those where it was much shorter. That is the moon passing through the particular nakshatra or star constellation or rashi, and it was 18 hours instead of 24 hours. So based on the lunar day, he was right to take bath when he was taking bath and break the Dwadasi at the time he was planning to break the Dwadasi. But the agent of Varuna didn't know that rule. But he knew. And so many other things that like refinements that people that don't have education, Vedic education, are not aware of. So, and he's a Vaishya. And he had knowledge. There's other examples as well. Examples of etiquette and examples of procedure and so many things. Because the reason I'm discussing this is someone raised a question. An educated, very well educated devotee raised a question: why was Krishna why did he wait until he went to Mathura? And one of the answers is, according to Manu Samhita, those who are in Kshatriya families, they receive Diksha or Gayatri Mantra when they're 11, which is the age of Krishna when he went to Mathura. We're going to read it. But so he was 11, he was 10 years, 7 months when he left for Mathura, and some days later he killed Kamsa, and some days later, or shortly thereafter, he was with Vasudeva and Devaki, and shortly thereafter he received his Diksha from Gargamuni. It's right in the Bhagavatam saying that. And then he went to the school of Sanipani Muni. So the timing was right. And although Prabhupada is writing here, those who are not born in Brahmana families were not meant for academic education. Certainly the Kshatriyas had academic education. They were Rajas and also Rishis. They were trained. Many examples. But they didn't receive the exact same training, that's for sure. So in any case, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes in his commentary, very short, at the suitable time, 3 years, Sva Kalena, they began to herd the calves. Jiva Goswami writes, the sequence of events in Mahavan, according to age, is as follows, so chronologically. Killing Putana, breaking the cart, name-giving ceremony, crawling, walking, killing Trinavarta, first showing of his universal form, dancing for the elder gopis, buying fruit, pulling the calves' tails, eating dirt, second showing of universal form, stealing yogurt, being bound to the mortar, Yashoda calling the boys for lunch, and entering Vrindavan. There's a quick chronology. Now the pastimes in Vrindavan begin. The two boys pleased the people of Braja by their childhood actions and charming speech, as previously. In the same Kumara period, so Kumara, we're going to go into some details about how this whole thing worked with Bala Poganda Kumara and Kaishor and Yovana. So here we go. In the same Kumara period, Swakalena, they began herding the calves. So Kumara age is starts when the boy turns 5. So, but they're before Kumara age. They're just 3. The two ended their Kumara period at the end of 4 years, though normally it ends after 5 years, for it is said, quoting Canto 10, Chapter 8, "O sage among kings, within a very short time, both Balaram and Krishna began to walk very easily in Gokula on their legs, without the need to crawl." So, walking, well, those of you that are parents, what age does a child normally begin to walk? Nityananda Pran or Vijendra Moksha? What age does a child begin to walk? "12 to 14 months begins to walk. So here's commentary from Krishna's coming before Vasudeva and Devaki after freeing them from the prison of Kamsa. Krishna saying, speaking to his mother and father, "Because of your anxiety for us, you never experienced the happiness of raising us through Balya, Poganda, and Kaishora age, childhood, boyhood, or youth. It may be objected," so listen carefully to all this terminology, "it may be objected that the women of Mathura mentioned that Krishna and Balaram, this is when they came in and saw them ready to battle Chanur and Mushtaka, saying, hey, this isn't a fair match. They were of Kaishora age and not yet reached Yovana age. Quote, "Krishna and Balaram have very tender limbs, being still at the Kaishora age, not having reached their adolescence, Yovana." That's chapter 44. Thus, the match between the huge wrestlers and the young boys was unequal. Therefore, it cannot be said that they had finished their Kaishora age. It's a little, it's what our acharyas do sometimes. Over here it says this, and over there it says that, and how do we balance between this and that? So it's one of those. So, the definition of the different stages of growing up is given as follows, quote, "Kumara age lasts until the age of 5. Poganda, when one boy turns 5 until he turns 10, is Poganda. And then from 10, when he turns 11, that's when Krishna came to Mathura, when he was 11, till 15, that's Kaishora age. From then on is Yovana. According to this statement, the Kaishora period ends at the age of 15, or when when he turned from 15 to 16. So let's do it again. They're leaving out Bala, but it's Kumara until the age of 5. This is Jiva Goswami's explanation, or definition. Kumara until 5. From 6 until 10, Poganda. From 11 until 15, Kaishora. So when he entered Vrindavan, he was not yet in his Kaishora age. And it ends when he's 15. Krishna was only 11 years old when he killed Kamsa, as verified by Uddhava's words, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 26. Like a covered flame, Krishna remained there incognito with Balaram for 11 years. I think I'm going to have to read this twice because it's a little involved. And since Krishna and Balaram never took brahminical initiation in Brajabhumi, it was at the time of their going to Mathura that their Kaishora age began. When they killed Kamsa, then they received their brahminical initiation. That's their Kaishora age, from 11 to 15. This objection to Lord Krishna's statement in the present verse is, you didn't get to experience those 3 ages, Bala, Kaishora, and Bala, Koganda, and Kaishora. So, this objection to Lord Krishna's statement in the present verse, that his parents could not enjoy his Kaishora age, is not exactly right. It's his Kaishora age began when he was 11. And that's when they were together, 11. He goes on, I can read this twice. Yet we should consider the following statement from the Bhagavatam 10.8.26. Oh, King Parikshit, within a short time Rama and Krishna began to crawl very easily in Gokula on their legs, by their own strength, without the need to crawl. Unquote. Sometimes we see that a prince, even while in his Poganda stage of life, undergoes exceptional physical growth and exhibits activities appropriate to the next, the Kaishora age. Then what to speak of Lord Krishna, whose exceptional growth is established in Vaishnava Toshini, Bhakti Rasramrita Sindhu, Ananda Vrindavan Champu, and other works. So here's his chronology. There's the standard, then there's the Krishna. At the age of 3 years, 4 months, Krishna displayed the qualities of a 5-year-old while spending his Kumara age in Mahavan. So according to him, instead of the Kumara age ending at 5, for him it ended at 3 years, 4 months. The period from then to the age of 6 years, 8 months, during which he lived in Vrindavan, constitutes his Poganda age. So 3 years, 4 months, 3 years, 4 months, makes 6 years, 8 months. And then, at that time, the family shifted to Nandagram. The period from the age of 6 years and 8 months through his 10th year, during which time he lived at Nandishwar or Nandagram, constitutes his Kaishora age. So there's different things being said at different places. There's the standard. When the boy turns 11, he enters his Kaishora age. And then there's Krishna. When he was at Nandagram, he was already in his Kaishora age, and he finished it when he left. Then, at the age of 10 years, 7 months, on the 11th lunar day of the dark fortnight of the month of Chaitra, Krishna went to Mathura And on the 14th day thereafter he killed Kamsa. Thus Krishna completed his Kaishura period at the age of 10. And he eternally remains at that age. In other words, we should understand that from this point on, Krishna remains forever a Kaishura. And then he supports that by saying, I'm not reading it, but there's evidence when Krishna was in Dwaraka and Pradyumna entered his chamber in his palace in Dwaraka, the ladies thought that was Krishna. They became shy and ran this way, that way. And then they realized, no, it's just his son, Pradyumna, who at that time was 12. So Krishna, who was however old he was at that time, 100 something, and his son, who was 12, they looked the same age. Kaishura. Sometimes it's also said Yovana. So I'll say it, and then I'll read it again. So there's this definition he gives. Kamara, up until the age of 5, or through the age of 5. Hoganda, from the age of 5, or I guess from 6 till 10, and through the age of 10 is Poganda. Kaishora is when one turns 11, and up to the end of 15, when turns 16, Yovana. So that's ordinary, but Krishna was extraordinary. So Krishna's extraordinary was he finished his Kaishora age at 3 years, 4 months in Gokul. Then when they shifted, he entered his Poganda age, went to Vrindavan for 3 years, 4 months. So normally that would go up until one is through the age of 10, just before the age of 11, but he finished quickly. And then when he went to Nandagram, that's where he entered his Kaishora age, and he finished his Kaishora age. And he became Yovana. That's Krishna's aging, his precocious aging sequence. So sometimes there is 11, but his maturity was as if he was a 16-year-old, although he was just 11. Should I read it again? Yeah? Okay. This is Jiva Goswami writing, and the longer reference is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So here's the sequence of events in Mahavan. Putana, breaking the cart, name-giving ceremony, crawling, walking, killing Trinavarta, first showing the universal form. Krishna yawned, and Mother Jasoda saw the universal form within his mouth. Stealing yogurt, being bound to the border, Yashoda calling the boys for lunch, and entering Vrindavan. Now his Vrindavan pastimes begin. They pleased the people of Vraja by their childhood actions and charming speech, as previously in the same Komara period, which is up until 5, although he had already passed it by leaving Gokul. The two ended their Komara period at the end of 4 years, though normally it ends after 5 years, which is a little different than what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. So here's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commenting. Is this just commentary on when Krishna came before Vasudeva and Devaki in the prison, saying, because of your anxiety for us, you never experienced the happiness of raising us through the Balya Poganda Kaishora ages. It may be objected that the women of Mathura mentioned that Krishna and Balaram were of Kaishora age and had not reached Yovana. Quote, Krishna and Balaram, having very tender limbs, being still at the Kaishora age, have not reached adolescence, Yovana specifically. That's Canto 10, Chapter 44. Thus, the match between the huge wrestlers and the young boys was unequal. Therefore, it cannot be said that they had finished their Kaishora age. Now, they didn't say that they had finished. They were still in their Kaishora age, but he had finished his Kaishora age in another sense, which is as follows. The definition of the different stages of growing up is given as follows. Quote, Kumara, up to the age of 5. Poganda, to age 10. Kaishora, age 15. From then on, one is Yovana. According to this statement, the Kaishora period ends at the age of 15, or at the end of 15. Krishna was only 11 years old when he killed Kamsa, as verified by Uddhava's words. Quote, like a covered flame, Krishna remained there, Vrindavan, incognito with Balaram for 11 years. So that's authoritative, that's the benchmark. And since Krishna and Balaram never took brahminical initiation in Brajabhumi, at the time of their going to Mathura, that their Kaishora age began rather than ended. "11 years, 11 to 15, Kaishora age, by conventional standard. The objection to Krishna's statement, that is, to his mother and father, you didn't experience my childhood pastimes, is based on a conventional understanding. It's not based on conventional understanding. He's 11. Based on conventional understanding, Kaishora is 11 to 15. And he was 11. They hadn't missed his Kaishora stage, but Krishna had passed his Kaishora stage in Nandagram. And so we should consider Krishna was precocious. He was walking while still in Gokul instead of crawling at an earlier stage. Sometimes we see that a prince, even while in his Poganda stage of life, undergoes exceptional physical growth and exhibits activities appropriate to a Kaishora, then what to speak of Lord Krishna, whose exceptional growth was established in Vaishnava Toshini, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ananda Vrindavan Champu, and other works. Paragraph. So here's his benchmarks. At the age of 3 years, 4 months, Krishna displayed qualities of a 5-year-old while spending his Komara age in Mahavan. The period from then to the age of 6 years, 8 months, during which he lived in Vrindavan, constitutes his Poganda stage. 3 years, 4 months plus 3 years, 4 months plus 6 years something months. The period from the age of 6 years and 8 months through his 10th year, during which time he lived at Nandishwara Nandagram, constitutes his Kaishora age. And that's what Krishna is referring to when he speaks to his mother and father, Vasudeva Devaki. You missed my Kishore age. I finished it in underground. Then, at the age of 10 years, 7 months, on the 11th lunar day of the dark fortnight of the month of Chaitra, Krishna went to Mathura, and on the 14th day thereafter, he killed Kamsa. It took him 3 days. Then Krishna completed his Kaishore period at the age 10, so he was 10 plus, almost 11. But normally his Kaishore is 11 to 15, but he had already completed it. And he eternally remains at that age. In other words, we should understand that from this point on, Krishna remains forever a Kaishora. So now back to Jiva Goswami. That was Vishwanath. Jiva has a slightly different picture of the timeline. In Vrindavan, they continued their Kumara period for 1.5 years. So he's going that they moved when he was 3. Vishwanath says 3 years, 4 months. They moved when he was 3. And add 1.5 years, that's 4.5. So he finished his Kaishore period in Vrindavan when he was 4.5. So he's saying, earlier he said 4, but now it's 4.5. Since the stealing of the calves by Brahma took place within this period as well. Later in this chapter, it says, quote, in this way Krishna and Balaram passed their Kumara in Vraja by engaging in activities of childish play. So Jiva is supporting their Kumara period continued and extended beyond Gokul into the first 1.5 years of being in Vrindavan. So when he was 4 years, he completed what everyone else completes in 5 years, or 4.5 years. He completes what everyone else completes in 5 years. However, Harivangsha says, concerning their playing in Mahavan, that's Gokul, Krishna and Balaram passed through their Kumara period and stayed at Mahavan till the age of 7. Age of 7, quote unquote, should be understood to mean that they acted like a 7-year-old. As with other contradictions, some people explain that the description is from a different kalpa. And that's what Sanatana Goswami says. Now we're reading Sanatana Goswami. After coming to Vrindavan in this way, the 2 boys gave bliss to all the inhabitants of Braja by their attractive, astonishing, natural activities and by their sweet words. Though they could speak previously when Krishna ate dirt, now in Vrindavan their speech was particularly sweet with various topics. When they attained 4 years, Swakalena, they began to herd the calves. Elsewhere it's 3 years, 4 months. Here it's 4 years. Sanatana Goswami. They stayed in Mahavan for 3 years. In the 4th year, they came to Vrindavan. After spending a short time doing Balya Leela, they began herding the calves. Krishna and Balaram passed through their Kumara period and stayed at Mahavan to the age of 7, Harivangsha. This statement is from another kalpa. Doesn't say, some say he's one of the ones that says it, and should be rejected since it contradicts many statements elsewhere. And the final is Jiva Goswami's Krama Sandarbha, quoting this verse, 37. In this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys and talking in half-broken language, gave pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. Paragraph, the two boys pleased the people by their attractive speaking. Kala Vakya. So that's text 37. I spent some time going through this. These added little insertions are some research that I did because it's hard to get it really precise because the numbers aren't exactly what one acharya says and another acharya says, and that's kind of unusual. Usually they say the same thing because they're saying it based upon scriptural reference. But this statement by Vishwanath, 10 years, 7 months on the something of the month of Chaitra, that's very specific. 11th lunar day in the dark fortnight of the month of Chaitra, Krishna went to Mathura. So they obviously went through great trouble to day by day and phases of the moon by phases of the moon and so forth to determine things. And then they use this like, thus Krishna completed his Kaishur period at the age 10. Well, he's not yet 11, but he's not just 10. He's 10 years, 7, now that 10 years, 8 months. So he's 10, but almost 11. And he completed his Kaishura period at the age of 10 years, 8 months, or almost 11. When normally it begins at 11 and runs through 15. Which is same as what he's saying above. At the time of their going to Mathura, that was when their Kaishura age began, rather than when it ended. $11. But then later it's, while he's in Nandagram, he's completing his Kaishura period. It's contradictory. In one sense, maybe not so important, but it's one acharya saying, apparently, as far as I can gather, is saying two different things in the same purport. The Bhagavatam reference that's given here is In Vrindavan, they continued their Kumara period for 1.5 years, since the stealing of the calves by Brahma took place within this period as well. Later in this chapter it is said, in this way Krishna and Balaram passed their Kumara in Braja by engaging in activities of childish play. Running out of power? So summary, then let's see if there's some discussion. There must be some basis for each of the acharyas saying this age begins at this time and the next age begins at that time and so forth, based upon scripture. And their scriptural references are not precisely the same. And one way that kind of just whitewashes the whole thing is to say, well, it's different kalpas. It's kind of like the easy way out. Or the sources may be somewhat different, and therefore the different sources say something slightly different. And another, it's not really so important anyways. I mean, was it at this time, with that time, with this many months, or that many months? Not so important, but it's good. I feel it's good to get a picture of the ages of Krishna, in part because the rasa changes. The emphasis of Krishna's pastime shifts as his age or his pastimes move. So the little boy that's crawling, and little boy that's learning to talk, and little boy that's then walking, and then all the the different developmental stages of Krishna's childhood. The ladies getting Krishna to dance and to sing, and clapping, and I'll give you half a sweetmeat, and all those things. That's especially enjoyable for elders in a certain stage of Krishna's pastimes. He's exhibiting those pastimes to stimulate their ecstatic love, because that's the kind of love that they have, and he's stimulating it. And then the next, and then the next. So the progressive stages, the exact number of months and so forth, or years and months, is kind of less important than the essence of different stages are awakening and inspiring transcendental love in different ways. So if we just take it that when he shifted from Mahavan or Gokul to Vrindavan, whether it was he had finished or had not finished his Kumara stage, somewhere in there the Kumara stage is over and the next stage begins. And as that stage shifts, the type of activities that he engages in, the joyful exchanges with his cowherd boyfriends, in herding the calves, and then later herding the cows together, and in turn also the exchanges with the gopis, the younger gopis, because the older gopis seem to know their role, their involvement in his pastimes diminish, at least as far as the emphasis describing them in the Bhagavatam changes. There's a shift in mood, so for stimulation of ecstatic love at different stages. Although, for example, this pastime with the girls, Krishna's Vastrahari, Krishna stealing the clothing of the gopis when they're taking a bath in order to get Krishna as their husband, they're really little. That pastime takes place in Gokul. And Krishna is also very young, And he has with him Priyanarma Sakhas, the really even younger than him, boys. What do any of these boys or girls understand about anything about boy-girl stuff? What do they understand? But it's a again like a precocious developmental activity, because little boys and little girls in Vedic culture, they would get married without thinking about living with the person they're married to. Just they know who they're married to because that's what you do when you're in this Vedic culture. So they had that loving attraction for Krishna even when they were very young. So it's not exactly matching the age of the development of a young boy and a young girl's body, or the young boys, the cowherd boy friends of Krishna, and the different stages that they went through. Like, for example, this a very interesting thing. For the 1 year that passed where Krishna was manifesting as the cows, and the calves and the cowherd boys, the mothers didn't even recognize them, etc., etc. That it was Krishna and not their son, because the voice inflection and everything was their son. So 1 year passed and they're little boys, so they're growing. And then the boys that were in the cave, they also grew. So at a certain point, according by the Acharya's explanation, the boys in the cave, somehow they just forgot that they were in a cave. And what did they eat for 1 year when they're in a cave? And they grew. So when that 1 year passed, and Brahma's back, and then the pastime resumes. Then it's like they don't even remember they were in the cave, and they say, Krishna, you just came right back, and you're so attached to us. Sit down and have your lunch, like nothing happened. But they're 1 year older, and it must have been Krishna manifesting in the course of that year. They looked 1 year older because when they came home that night, they're 1 year older. Kind of mysterious, but it's the forms that the associates of Krishna take and that Krishna takes is simply a manifestation of reciprocation of love. That's what rules Vrindavan. Love rules in Vrindavan. And different exchanges, different manifestations of words and behaviors and forms and everything is simply an ecstatic loving exchange at different stages. And our human life is a reflection of that. The covered by illusory energy human stages and the developmental things that happen when children are conceived and born and so forth and so on. It's a mirror of the spiritual realm. Krishna Loka is quite different. I imagine there even in, as mentioned here, Kshatriya sons, they manifest, spirit of a young boy even before they're a young boy. Their growth and their abilities and so forth, it's just, they're endowed with certain capacities and they manifest those capacities very early. What do you speak of Krishna? So he just moves, and everything moves with him according to his desire for enjoyment, and his desire for enjoyment is loving exchange. And specifically in Vrindavan, with the intensity of loving attraction for Krishna, he reciprocates especially. Let's see if there's some discussion. Text 37.
Hare Krishna. Okay, I had a question.
Okay.
We know that Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi, their relationship to Krishna is different from Vasudeva and Devaki's.
Yeah.
Because the relationship of Brajavasis to
Mhm.
Krishna is much closer because of the lack of awe and reverence in
Yes.
their love. But to me, Vasudeva and Devaki kind of seem similar to that because they don't have that feeling towards Krishna. So I just
They don't have the which?
they don't have the feeling of awe so much and reverence because they're like the parents of Krishna. So what differentiates exactly the relationship of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mata and Vasudeva and Devaki?
We discussed this like threadbare at the end of chapter 8. But I'll review it simply, and if you want to go into detail, you can go hear those recordings. There's two major differences. One major difference is Nanda and Yasoda's love is overwhelmingly strong. Time and again, Krishna shows divinity, and they just like can't see it. They see it, and then they just go right past it. Because their love is so strong, that the sweetness is the term used by our acharyas. And Vasudeva and Devaki, right from the get-go, Krishna appeared in his four-armed Vasudeva form and said, "I'm God." And they offered prayers. And Vasudeva and Nanda and Yasoda never offer prayers. And there's never, although he shows in a number of times, in a number of ways, his divinity, they kind of speculate on it for a little bit. And then the curtain closes and Yogamaya covers them and it's over. So, and as mentioned here, they're good for, because of the intensity of and sweetness, both, of their love, they experience the fullness of Krishna's childhood pastimes. And even between the two, it's repeatedly said, Yashoda is even more fortunate, because Nanda was off doing other things and she was with Krishna all the time. So she's the most fortunate, Mother Yasoda. And so like in that hierarchy is Yasoda, Nanda, and Vasudeva Devaki, or Devaki and Vasudeva, and then others, the ladies in Braja. I forget how they fit into that sequence, but our acharyas go into it in those kinds of details. The intimacy of their love is such that it doesn't water off a duck's back. It doesn't. There's no divinity involved with Krishna. There's in that Varuna's agent kidnaps Krishna, and Krishna goes to rescue Nanda, and Nanda sees what he sees. He sees the opulence of Varuna, and he sees Varuna worshipping his son, and he comes back and tells the cowherd men, "Whoa." And then they start saying, maybe he's Narayan. And then they say, well, maybe he'll show us his abode. Maybe because we're involved in the samsara, up and down, and we're like conditioned souls going up and down, and this time around with this, maybe he's Narayan, maybe he'll show us his abode. So Krishna, they don't say anything. They're just, Krishna shows them the spiritual world. And then the curtain closes and they forget everything. And when they see the spiritual world, there's like verses and commentaries and all kinds of... They see themselves with Krishna in the spiritual world. They don't see the other Vrajavasis, they just see themselves and Krishna in his original form. And then the curtain closes, the thing is withdrawn, and they forget everything. They don't go offer prayers to Krishna or stuff like that, because they're overwhelmed. They have this overwhelming mood, intense mood of parental affection. It's really interesting. Really interesting. They have some sense that he has, because when he shows powers, they rationalize it and say, Gargamuni said they have powers like Narayan. So when the serpent is swallowing Nanda Maharaj, he calls out, Krishna, little boy. He's still a little boy. Please protect me. Thinking, rationally, Gargamuni said he'll have powers like Narayan, and with those powers he'll protect the Vrajavasis. He didn't call for it, because there's other cowherd man. He didn't call for them, he called for Krishna. So he recognizes he has powers, but he's not worshipping him, or he's his little boy that has these special powers, because that's what Gargamuni said. And then they try to beat the serpent and sticks and burning embers, and it doesn't work. Krishna just shows his divinity. He just touches his foot, left foot, and the Vidyadhara comes out of the serpent body, and he's showing his divinity. And the Vidyadhara is offering his prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right in their presence. And the curtain closes. They can't see it. They can't see it. Because of the intensity of their parental affection. And the cowherd boy just go, yay, Krishna's great. They don't get hung up about, they think he's special, we're his friend, we must be special too. That's how little kids process it.
There's a question on...
Do we do anyone in the room first? Give the online people a chance to...
It is it's possible for any serious sadhakas to have the same bhava as the gopis as for Krishna.
It's not just by sincere sadhana. Yes, it's possible, but it's not just by sincere sadhana. There's other stages. And, the other stages are mentioned in Nectar Devotion. And that means the association and becoming a follower of one of the Ragatmika Bhaktas that suits one's actual spiritual identity, not just eeny, meeny, miny, mo, let me pick that one, let me pick that one. It's one's actual spiritual identity and becoming a follower. So that one has to become eligible for that. But yes, we're meant to go there. That's where the train is going, and we're on the train. Please, we have a ticket. Shravan?
Guru Maharaj,
Just speak.
the second stage of sadhana that you mentioned in the nectar of devotion, and often I hear more on either gopi or parental friendship and so forth, but it is never described about following a different inhabitants, let's say a parrot, a tree, something like a cloud. Those things are not described. It seems like these are the prominent that one would aspire. I don't have a clarity on that much.
I think I understand what you're saying. There, all the residents of Vrindavan and those who become stimulated by Krishna's flute playing, just like we're hearing in the morning session, those are stimulations of ecstatic love. Those are udipans for those that, if it is one's eternal relationship to be of this or that, the stimulations are there, just as they are in descriptions of the other devotees. You know, the cowboys and the gopis and different moods amongst the different gopis and etc., etc., etc. It's right there. And it's not that it's not there. There's emphasis, yes, because there's prominent relationships, yes. But Krishna holds dear everyone. And one will be attracted this or that or the other. Now, our acharyas often speak about the gopis in part because that's their position, and also Lord Chaitanya honored them in a special way. And so they honored them following Lord Chaitanya's honoring them in a special way. Okay? Anything else in the room? Otherwise we're going online.
This question is from Sri Radhika. Time does not affect these eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan, and yet by the passage of time they are developing from one stage to the next.
Yes.
So does time have multiple features, just
Yes.
like there's Yogamaya and Mahamaya?
Not multiple features, just like Yogamaya and Mahamaya. It's Yogamaya all the way. Meaning, it's a transcendental exchange, or you could say transcendental competition. Krishna's desire for pleasure is variegated, and they're accommodating Krishna's desire for pleasure, and vice versa, their desire for loving exchange with Krishna. Krishna accommodates their desire for loving exchange with them in particular ways. But we should not think of those pastimes and even the transformations of ages of Krishna to be like this. That it's not like this. That is to say, once your boys grow up, they're no longer little boys. But Krishna is eternally a little boy, and he's eternally everything. The notion of time in the spiritual realm, where the internal potency prevails, should not be thought of looking at it through the lens of our experience of time. I mean, it's a mistake. And one will not understand. You'll be forever baffled trying to see it that way. One of the ways to understand time acting in the spiritual world is it doesn't destroy anything. timelessness is without the destruction of anything. Because time brings things into being and destroys things. But time, as we know it, is absent. But there's the sense of passage of time for the sake of pastimes. Lila. I'm not, I haven't heard a description, nor do I feel capable of offering a description of what's like, what's eternal time anyways. You can say what it's not. But what's a pastime that's eternal? Because we can only think of pastimes. This is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks like this. One of the ways he describes the fall of the living entity is the tendency is to think of it in terms of time as we know it. Like because people ask, once upon a time we were in the spiritual world, why the heck would we want to come to this miserable place? As if it's an event in time. So what's an event that's not in time anyways? What's an eternal pastime? Because we can't think of it. We can only think in terms of our experience. Here we are sitting together in the room, and before we were somewhere, and then we're going to be somewhere. So this is an event. So what's an event that's timeless? What is it? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What is it? It's beyond our experience. So we can't know it. We can't describe it other than it's what it isn't. It's not like this. It's an eternal pastime. So, back to her question, in the spiritual realm, it's the internal potency, and by the agency of the internal potency, all kinds of things happen. And we describe them as if they're events in time, bearing in mind they're not events within time. They're eternal. For example, there's daytime and there's nighttime. Krishna has his daytime pastimes. He goes out and takes care of the cows, and he comes back in the evening. And then there's the evening pastimes. So there's the rising of the sun and the daytime, and then the nighttime, and then the full moon. It's like, looks like, but these are eternal pastimes. How do we put that together? Time as we know it is the movements of the sun. And so in the spiritual world there's no need of sunlight, moon, or electricity, but there's a sun rising and setting. So it looks like passage of time that we know, but it's not passage of time as we know. It's a big mystery. Timelessness. Simple is nothing is destroyed. Because time destroys. There's not that kind of time. There's eternal time. It doesn't destroy anything. With eternal time, there's eternal pastimes. What's that look like? Well, here it is. There's this pastime and this pastime, and they're eternal pastimes. You can't contain it within time and space. It's just different. So back to her question again. Time operates in a different way by Krishna's arrangements. Eternal time moves according to Krishna's arrangements, like everything in the spiritual world.
There was one event of eternal time when Narada Muni visits Dwarka. Krishna is in all the different palaces, doing different activities, and they all seem like different time of day.
Although it's the same time of day. But so, what's that? And even, if he's doing different things at different times of the day, he's just doing things, and they're eternal pastimes. And then he's married, then he has children. So that looks like a worldly thing. And they have children, and then they have children, and they all disappear. All at once, poof. his pastimes. Anyway,
So question from Latika Bhardwaj. Krishna came in Dwapara Yuga. So Krishna behaved like 7-year or 5-year-old according to Dwapara Yuga age. What would be that in equivalent to Kali Yuga?
well, that's an interesting question. Krishna's appearance is towards the end of Dwapara Yuga, and so it's quite similar to Kali Yuga, to the next Yuga, because it's towards the end of the Yuga. I remember having this type of question. Maybe you have the answer to this one. In Ram's Leela, it's not just, Kali Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, it's Treta Yuga. And how old was he when he and Sita were married and so forth. So because specific to the passage of time moves differently in Treta Yuga than in Kali Yuga. Have you thought about that?
But as I've been hearing these lectures, because it's the Supreme Personality and His counsel, unlike in a conditioned soul or conditioned human being, certain activities or facets of life only unfold at certain ages. Like for example, in a 10-year-old, what we call mundane conjugal, that doesn't fully manifest yet until the body becomes ready for it.
But that's not what the question is. The question is the time lapse for duration of life of someone in Treta Yuga is different than the time lapse for somebody in Kali Yuga. Like, Prabhupada saying at the end of Kali Yuga, a grand old man will be 20-30. So,
I always thought that in one sense, because it's still
rising and setting of the sun.
Rising and setting of the sun, it's the same time, effect of day, but just that their longevity is such that they calculate.
So their adult life extends longer and their junior life is comparable. It's the rising and setting of the sun. Okay, that's plausible. Hey Monkey, you're looking interested. Okay, next question.
Next question is Sri Radhika. Did I understand correctly that the distinctions between the stages, Kaumara, Kauganda, etc., is defined on the basis of bodily development and rasa? If Krishna's development is being called precocious, what is the standard parameter it's being compared to? Standard development of other children during this time?
Yes. Yes.
In different yugas, children's development must also be distinct since humans live for different amounts of time in these yugas.
We just touched on that topic.
Check it for next one.
Yes.
So his question from Sanchari. I have been, is love the basis of faith or is faith the basis of love?
Well, in Rupa Goswami's teaching, love is the mature stage of faith, so faith is the basis of love.
Uttama Bhakta. As Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna's life and love for simple and natural setting is amazing. Does it have any bearing on our nature as jivas?
Does it have any bearing on our nature as jivas? I'm not sure I understand his question. I maybe I understand his question, but I'm not sure I understand his question. You know, Krishna has his nature, we're part and parcel of Krishna. At the same time, Krishna had pastimes in Dwaraka, Krishna had pastimes in Mathura, and Krishna had pastimes in Vrindavan. And each of us has some relationship with Krishna. And followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tend to be attracted to Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan for various reasons. But it doesn't exclude followers of Krishna being attracted to other features besides Vrindavan.
Sanchari again. Love is present in its purest form in the spiritual world, but here it's twisted beyond belief. People become so jaded that they discredit the possibility of being loved or even having the capacity to love unconditionally. This manifests in skepticism and sometimes hatred of the movement or religion, because they just assume everyone is either horrible or covering up all that is horrible. Is it our place to inform their understanding, or do we just leave it be when it's someone you know or someone who you know has considerable influence in your circles?
Well, that's it. The factor of intelligence has to come into play in response to how do you deal with somebody that has that view, especially, you know, when there's a circle that you move in, somebody has that, I'll just, you know, identify it as rebellious and mode of ignorance mood, then that it seems that sound vibration of one form or another is needed. Now, you know, where that sound vibration is placed, at what time and in what manner and so forth, you know, just to inoculate or protect those that are hearing that kind of sound the negative sound vibration. That's a discretionary choice you would have to make, or someone has to make. Whether that person is going to be able to shift their view, you know, how do they get that view, and how do they get in a circle of people that have another view? That's for me, that's a puzzle. And birds of a feather flock together. So people that are, let's say, mode of goodness people or spiritual minded people keep in their circle somebody that's just, you know, the opposite. Then how'd they get in that circle? To begin with. So I don't know how to advise other than what I just said. Sometimes those people just select themselves out because you're not fun. And fun for them is bashing and insulting and, you know, name calling and deriding, and, you know, if you don't do that, then you're not fun.
So Satish Bhatnagar, is there a planet in Goloka where Krishna is always performing one-year-old pastimes, similarly 2, 3 and 4?
No. Don't think in linear three-dimensional terms, please. not like that.
Amara, Lord Narayana told Brahma that he will soon descend to the material world to remove the burden of the earth, and before that he asked the demigods to establish kingdoms and families here. Did gopis also come as a part of this entourage?
Gopis are Krishna's eternal associates, so the answer is no. There are some exceptions. The sadhana siddhas persons come and receive the association of the nitya siddha persons, but not denizens of the heavenly planets descending. That's it? Okay. Anything else? Last chance. Anything? No? Okay. Practical question.
I've been contemplating whether to ask or not ask, but I'll ask. It's been a struggle, like when I hear pastimes like this, it's quite meditative. And it really helps with the absorption and thinking actually about the goal of life and what we are aiming for. And also at a practical level, you have your services, and the frustration comes when I see my services sometimes kind of a distraction, because I want to absorb myself in going deeper, but then the demands of the service kind of calls you upon spending more time on practical things. So, and I feel before, at least 10 years ago, I used to think, oh, it's going to get better, because when your chanting gets better, your absorption gets better, things will get better. But I'm seeing that your services grows, and somehow, especially the nature of my service, the administrative part, it sometimes is not very tasteful. Like, you wish you didn't have that so much and more of this and less of that, but it seems like this is more and that is less. So how do you reconcile that in your heart and not feel frustrated?
I had a conversation with Bhakti Chaitanya Swami the other day, and he's on the executive committee. So compared to what you're doing, it's like small. What you're doing is small compared to what he's doing. And he was laughing, and he was appreciating, because I'm sending him things that I'm researching and asking some questions and sending him the end product, and so his chuckle is this is his third time around on the executive committee, and he said, after this I'm not going to do it again. It's purification of the senses, this meaning the subtle senses, because the senses need engagement, and to be engaged in whatever it takes to please Krishna, that's what service means. And that's the mood that permits a person that has, the rest of what goes with service, to be able to do that service in a proper mood, in a proper way. That is to say, it's just part of purification that one passes through. So then, say to go the other direction. Not to say that you want to do this, but just go in the other direction of, let me just be peaceful, and I'll do this and that. And so the meditation is not upon what is pleasing to Krishna, and pleasing to Krishna we understand through disciplic succession, but that our acharyas do. They did so many things. one of the, I mean, they did so many things. They were very involved in people's lives, which is part of what administration is. And like Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, the 6 Goswamis, as high as they were so involved with people's lives. And Jiva Goswami with getting deeds for temples and the more or less like the copyright on written material for the Goswamis, and protecting them and creating a library and preserving them and excavating Radhakund and they did management along with all these other things. So in their case it wasn't for purification, it was for preservation and propagation. And look what Bhaktisiddhanta did. And after doing what he did, he went back into giving his breath and everything to writing and preaching and printing and distributing and traveling and thising and thating and setting up temples. And so either for purification or on the other side of purification, besides setting example, just manifesting the will of Lord Chaitanya into this world, there's austerity involved in that. And it's not for, in our case it's for purification, in their case it's for fulfilling the mission of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. So when one becomes purified enough to meditate on that, then it's not, it can be compared to a mother having a small child. There's a lot of botheration having a small child, especially from the sannyasi's point of view. And, but mothers love it. And it's part of the being a mother is to have that care for a small child. And, then in this case, the child grows up. In the case of administration, the child doesn't seem to grow up. It's endless. It's not at some point that the child goes off. Now it's another stage of life. It's just so the other stage of life is to move into, like what Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj is. His position of experience and wisdom. He loves Vrindavan. That's at the core of his heart. That I know. And he loves sharing, exploring and sharing Vrindavan from his heart. So, but he's doing these other things because that's service to Lord Chaitanya's mission and our founder Acharya, and that's what keeps him on track. Or it keeps somebody that's doing that which is a distraction on track, because it's the fulfillment of that hearing and chanting mission. Because there are many people out there that don't have, so you could just, then different people have different propensities. Some of our devotees have become like enormously scholarly. It's not like they're not doing valuable service, but that's a propensity. So, you have to act according to our nature and not go away because it's disturbing. You have to go according to our nature. So that our psychophysical nature, our senses and mind and intelligence become purified for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya and his advent in this world, making manifest in this world this place of enormous suffering. People get relief from that suffering. And what are we going to do? Let the suffering go on? Too bad for them. We have to do something. It's karuna. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki? Jai.